Jake wasn't obsessed with becoming a millionaire. In fact, he rarely checked his net worth at all. Then, one rainy afternoon, while helping his grandfather clean out an old garage in rural Vermont, he found a faded notebook. Inside were handwritten records of his grandfather's finances spanning more than 40 years. What surprised Jake wasn't how much money his grandfather had earned. It was how his life dramatically changed after reaching just 3 specific net worth milestones. They weren't round numbers like most people expected. They represented moments when fear disappeared, choices expanded, and money finally started working for him. Today, we'll discover those same 3 milestones and why they can completely change your life. Milestone 1. $100,000 net worth. The cashier apologized as she scanned the groceries for the second time. Jake's debit card had been declined, even though payday was only 2 days away. Embarrassed, he quietly removed a few items from the shopping cart, while the line behind him grew longer. He promised himself that night he would never experience that feeling again. Instead of searching for a shortcut, Jake completely changed the way he handled money. Every raise went toward investments instead of a bigger lifestyle. Weekend freelance projects became opportunities to build wealth instead of excuses to spend more. Years passed without anyone noticing the quiet sacrifices he made. Then one rainy Saturday morning, while reviewing his finances over a cup of coffee, one number caught his attention. His net worth had crossed $100,000. Nothing dramatic happened. There were no fireworks or celebrations. But when his water heater unexpectedly failed a few weeks later, he simply called a plumber and paid the bill without checking his account balance first. Walking back into his kitchen, Jake smiled. He realized that the first $100,000 hadn't changed the way he lived. It had changed the way he felt. Fear had quietly been replaced by confidence. Milestone 2. $500,000. Net worth. Jake's phone rang just before lunch. The caller offered him a prestigious position with a much higher salary, but accepting it meant relocating across the country within a month. A decade earlier, Jake would have accepted without asking a single question. This time, he paused. That evening, instead of rushing to calculate the paycheck, he took a long walk through the neighborhood with his wife. They talked about their children's schools, weekend family traditions, and the friendships they had built over the years. When Jake returned home, he opened his investment accounts instead of the job offer. His net worth had quietly grown beyond $500,000, and the income from his investments had become an important part of his financial life. For the first time, he realized he didn't have to chase every opportunity simply because it paid more. The next morning, he politely declined the offer. His co-workers couldn't believe anyone would walk away from such a large raise. Jake understood something they didn't. Real wealth isn't measured by how many opportunities you accept. It's measured by how many you can comfortably refuse, because your financial future is already secure. Milestone 3. $2 million net worth. The alarm clock rang at 6 o'clock, just as it had for decades. Jake reached over to silence it, then stopped. There was nowhere he had to be. His investment income comfortably covered his family's living expenses, and his net worth had quietly grown beyond $2 million. Instead of rushing through traffic, he poured a cup of coffee and watched the sunrise from his backyard. Later that morning, his former employer called with an offer to return as a consultant on a major project. The pay was generous, and years earlier, he would have accepted without hesitation. This time, Jake asked himself a different question. Do I actually want to spend my time doing this? After thinking about it, he accepted, but only for 2 days each week, leaving the rest of his time for traveling with his wife, mentoring young entrepreneurs, and volunteering in his community. It wasn't the paycheck that excited him anymore. It was the freedom to decide how each day would be spent. Jake finally understood that the greatest luxury money can ever buy isn't a bigger house or a faster car. It's waking up every morning knowing your time truly belongs to you. Jake's grandfather had been right all along. The most important net worth milestones weren't about impressing other people. They were about changing the way you live. At $100,000, you gain stability. At $500,000, you gain choices. At $2 million, you gain freedom over your time. None of these milestones happen overnight. They are built through years of consistent saving, smart investing, and patient decision-making. Remember, wealth isn't measured by the number in your account alone. It's measured by how much control you have over your future. Because in the end, the real purpose of building wealth isn't to buy more things. It's to create a life you don't need to escape from.